All right, we'll be starting the session. All right, it's 8 a.m. Good morning from Rome, and thank you for joining us today on this UN Food System pre-summit affiliated session, Diet Change or Climate Change, Unlocking the Potential of Plant-Based Innovation. This session is co-organized by ProVeg International, the Buddhist Sushi Foundation, and the European Alliance for Plant-Based Foods. So we recently witnessed an acceleration in climate and environmental disasters, from the burning of the Amazon to the floodings in Europe, in Germany, Belgium, and China. And according to the last SOFI report, that's the State of Food Insecurity and Nutrition, published by the FAO, an agency every year at the HLPF, close to 800 million people are facing hunger in 2020. So this is around 160 million more than in 2019. We know that we need transformational action in our global food system, and one of the most important one is to shift to more healthy, plant-rich diets. We also need this to happen fast enough if we are serious about achieving the Paris Agreement and the 2030 Agenda, the SDGs. Today, we will try to be focusing on the solution. We acknowledge that these are not the only actions required to achieve resilience and sustainability in our food systems, but they are crucial because they have been acknowledged by scientists and one UN report after the other and experts as the most impactful ones. For example, the solution cluster 711 of the Food System Summit, Innovation for Alternative Protein, does provide some holistic science-based targets and pathways. Plant-based innovation have profoundly changed the consumption patterns of millions of people. Between 2018 and 2020, for example, European plant-based sales grew by 50%. And this trend is expected to continue and even accelerate according to many studies. The development around cellular agriculture, another topic, is also expected to play an important role in the near future. So as plant-based alternative started becoming a part of the mainstream in many regions in supermarkets and restaurants, what can we do and what should we do to accelerate this transition towards less resource intensive and quite often healthier consumption patterns? Our first speaker, Silvia Aluni, is a member of the Secretariat of the EAPF, the European Alliance for Plant-Based Foods. Silvia, thank you for being with us. And can you tell us how plant-based innovation can help the EU achieve its quite ambitious objectives?
Thank you very much, Rafael. I will just share my screen. Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak at this session about the role of plant-based innovation to build more sustainable food systems in the EU. My name is Silvia Lunni. I am part of the Secretariat of the European Alliance for Plant-Based Foods. EAPF is the EU multi-stakeholder coalition, which represents the plant-based food value chain. Our members are part of different segments of the plant-based food value chain, from the food industry to the not-for-profit sector. And actually in this session, we have three founding members of EAPF, ProVeg, Upfield, and Oatley, which very much shows the multi-stakeholder approach of the Alliance. EAPF's mission is to put plant-based foods at the heart of EU food policy. We believe plant-based foods have a key role to play in the transition towards more sustainable and healthy food systems in the EU. How do we do that? By promoting policies at European and national level which support plant-based foods, by promoting consumers' access and transparent information about plant-based foods, by fostering a level playing field for plant-based food and animal-based foods. Nowadays, there are still barriers impeding equal access to plant-based food across the EU. And of course, last but not least, via research and innovation, which is an important element to increase the uptake of plant-based foods and products. Research and innovation plays a key role in the EU because it contributes to achieving the political ambitions of the EU. Even if you're not active in the EU dimension, you may have heard about the European Green Deal, which is the cornerstone, the roadmap for an economic development of the EU based on sustainability, which revolves around one big ambition, which is to make the EU the first climate neutral continent by 2050. Of course, such an ambition will require deep transformation of the European economy across different sectors, including the agri-food sector. And in this regard, the Farm to Fork strategy is the strategy that specifically focuses on building healthier and more sustainable food systems. And in this context, the strategy recognizes the environmental and health benefits of moving towards more plant-based diets. And plant-based diets are also considered key in the prevention of several diseases, among which cancer. And that's why plant-based diets are also part of the main EU strategy on cancer, which is Europe's Beating Cancer Plan. Now, research and innovation have a role to play in contributing to reaching all these different objectives. And when we talk about R&I in the EU, we cannot not mention Horizon Europe, which is the biggest EU-funded program ever, with dedicated financial resources allocated to the agri-food sector and the environment, with also recently dedicated also calls for proposal related to protein diversification, protein transition, including plant-based proteins. However, we see that this is still not enough. We believe more investment in R&I on plant-based foods are needed to really tap into the potential of plant-based food and products to reach the EU health and sustainability goals. So where are the areas where we see a role for R&I to boost the uptake of plant-based foods and products? Well, taking a value chain approach, starting from the farming sector, here the focus is, of course, on a transition towards more plant crop farming for human consumption. And here we see a role for R&I to improve the resilience of plant crops while exploiting their sustainability potential. How to do that? Few ideas could be to improve the carbon sequestration properties of crops, to improve crop yields, which is still one of the main barriers for farmers to move towards plant crop farming, but also to gather knowledge and data to assess the environmental impact of crops and plant crops, such as, for instance, the impact on biodiversity restoration. When it comes to processing, retail, and distribution, here the focus is on plant-based products, which are analog to animal-based ones, meat or dairy, which are made from plant crops. And here we do see the role of R&I to further improve and develop products which can increasingly meet consumers' expectations when it comes to sustainability, health and nutrition, price, taste, and convenience. We believe R&I can play a role in all these elements. A few examples could be to improve the taste and texture of plant-based food products, to improve the nutritional profile of these products, but also to improve the competitiveness of plant-based products compared to their animal-based counterparts. When it comes to the consumption side, R&I can greatly help making plant-based foods the default option for consumers. If we are to move towards more plant-based diets, it will be important that consumer identifies and recognize plant-based foods as a default food choice. How can R&I help in that? Well, first by identifying what are the barriers for consumers to access plant-based foods, starting, for instance, from their perception and understanding of plant-based foods, but also to create context and situations where plant-based foods are presented and are part of healthy and sustainable diets. For instance, R&I projects on that aim to improve the uptake of healthy and sustainable foods in schools or in urban areas, while profiling plant-based foods within those projects and inserting them within those projects will help facilitating their access as well. This is just a short overview of what we see as few priorities for plant-based food innovation. If you would like to have more information about AIPF, our activities, membership opportunities, do not hesitate to contact us. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. It's very, very interesting to see like the key points also from the European market perspective on competitiveness or default veg, as ProVeg works a lot on the concept of reduction and making plant-based the norm, the default veg view. I think it's great to work with you on that. Thank you so much. And we're going to shift a little bit the focus in our next presentation and see what is happening in other regions and continents. Tiffany Tu, you are a project specialist for the Tsushi Foundation in New Zealand. and you're going to show us a little bit how you see like community empowerment and innovation taking place in very different places now in Zimbabwe and Africa. Tiffany, the floor is yours for 7 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raphael, for the introduction. So when we talk a lot about plant-based innovations, usually we talk about technology, but here I'd like to talk about plant-based technology, plant-based innovations that is actually on a very local level, so empowering our communities. And so this is where we talk about Zimbabwe. So for Zimbabwe, actually, so food security has always been a very big issue in Zimbabwe, and we see that because there's lots of droughts and they have really erratic rainfalls. So Tiji has been there for over a decade, and we've been working on food, shelter, and also providing water for a lot of different villages. And through this, we want to help them to form their villages again and make their communities safer, and also help with food security. So even as we see that we are helping in some areas, but a lot of different villages are still struggling. So this is one of their sources of food, which is called harua, and that is just a type of bug where they collect. So it's very hard to imagine in the stay and time, and with all the technology that we have around us, that villagers will actually have to work for a whole day, traveling up to 20 kilometers and only be able to collect 2-liter bottles. And that's not even enough to feed their family, let alone a whole village. So what can we do about it? Last year, actually, due to COVID, we see that there's an escalation of food insecurity. So lots of different organizations such as UNICEF and WFP have been all asking the community, international community, to do something. And Tiji has been helping out in these areas. It's very noticeable in our communities, and even till this day, we are struggling with food insecurity with many of the villages that we are assisting. So in the last 6 months, Tiji has distributed over 30,000 food parcels. So nearly 50% of Zimbabwe's population faces food insecurities. But when we go to a lot of the villages and a lot of marketplaces, we see a lot of rotting vegetables. And why is this created is because that people don't have money to buy food, and vendors and farmers have no choice due to the lockdown but to throw away this food. And this is actually creating a breeding ground for a lot of different insects, fleas, and these diseases. So what should we do about it, actually? When we talk about this with our community, people say, oh, who should we help first? Should we help the villagers that have this food insecurity, or should we help the vendors and the farmers who are falling into poverty because they cannot sell these goods? And what we realize is that food waste and food insecurity are actually two sides of one coin. So if we can do both, we can actually help the farmers as well as helping the villagers as well. So what Tiji has done is that we have come up with a banana and a food waste project. So why banana? We'll get to that slightly later. So the solution that they came up with actually helps with 3 parts. So 1 is to battle food insecurity, 2 is to support farmers and vendors with financial aid, and 3 is to clean up the environment and stop the spread of diseases. So the volunteers will actually go to the marketplace and buy the bananas, and also clean up the area and see if there's any foods that we can be reused and recycled. So about 1,000 bananas are purchased daily. So we get to the point is why bananas? And this is actually where local innovations come in. So one of the local people told us that bananas is a good source of food for them, and there's many ways of dealing with a banana. So what we can see here is that unripened bananas can be made into chips, which is used for our distributions. It could be made into bread, which they send to our food stations, we'll talk about later. It could also be made into normal everyday foods. Like if it's over ripened, it could actually be used into compost, and it is very good because it actually has a very high water content, which helps with the arid land. And also it can be made into fertilizer. So the banana skin is dried and then we ground it up, and it could be made into fertilizer as well. the whole fruit is actually utilized, and none of it is actually being wasted as such. So when we have the fertilizer and the compost, our volunteers actually worked with the government to organize some tools, agricultural tools, and also seeds, so that villagers can actually start planting. So these are some of the vegetables that you see have been planted. So without the fertilizers, actually, it's very hard for these plants to grow. But with the fertilizers, actually, all the land is flourishing and we see big gardens everywhere. But we can see that banana cannot solve the whole problem, actually, because of course we need all these plants as well. So we see that a lot of the villagers actually have gone from beetle to vegetables because it is so easy to grow in these areas now. So over 700 households and around 3,500 people have now changed their diets to just collecting bugs, to planting vegetables, and having a plant-based diet. So we talked a lot about these stations, food stations, and at the moment we are running 16 food stations that run 6 times a week, and provide up to 500 meals a day. So this is a very community-centered location, and we see all the villagers all come in and help out. So we see them collect firewood. They're all helping out with the planting of the vegetables and using that vegetables in their community, and also helping with the cooking as well. So we hope that it will slowly become a cyclic station. So everything from the bananas to the food, to the compost, to the planting, and all this will go into our food station. And this food station can provide food security for the village. So we see here that the power of engaging in local community is huge, because innovation is about, utilizing local resources to create new solutions to the problems that we have currently. And local knowledge and know-how is so important in this place, because they know where the resources are, they know how to find people, and the people that in the villages trust them to do what's right for them. So although there are a lot of difficulties, and we see that our new adaptation sometimes is hard, but the local people are very willing to help each other out, because they see that they've been helped out in the past, and they also want to lend the helping hand. So we see all these villages flourishing, and it's just that one compassionate thought. And that is what we use to find a creative solution to feed the whole community. So I think we can start with our whole community, using plant-based innovations at a very local level to ensure food security for our vulnerable communities and our vulnerable people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tiffany. This is very impressive and extremely interesting. And we've been working on this topic of food security for quite a long time, also with the Buddhist Sushi Foundation, having webinars and sessions together. And I think it's crucial to acknowledge that this is, of course, one of the key topics of this summit, food security, and of course, the around 800 million people that are suffering from malnutrition in general is really unacceptable. We're changing continents now, and I would like to introduce Shirley Liu, the director of ProVeg Asia. Shirley, we know a lot about innovation and plant-based product, and a lot of the innovation has been taking place in Asia in recent years. The continent also accounts for around 60% of the world population, hence the importance of diversifying protein intake in this specific region. Shirley, can you tell us a bit more in the next 5 to 6 minutes about what you are doing to foster plant-based innovation in Asia?
Sure, thank you, Rafael. Yeah. Okay. For those whom we haven't introduced about ProVeg yet, ProVeg International is the largest plant-based organization in Europe. ProVeg has been accredited by UNEP, and we have also won the Momentum of Change Award for our school program in Germany. We have teams in several markets in Europe, including Germany, UK, Netherlands, Poland, Spain, and also Belgium, North America, South Africa. I'm based in Shanghai, and I represent PROVAC in Asia. So like Raphael said that in Asia, we have been very much focusing on supporting, growing the plant-based eating through innovation. Asia is not only home to the important and iconic plant-based ingredients such as tofu and also tempeh. It is also a land of bright minds that could lead the creation of future foods. So how we do it, how we approach it on partnering with the private sector, the food industries. We do this through working with them to accelerate the plant-based innovation and unlock the market potential by bringing together the creativity of university students who are today's target consumers, tomorrow's decision makers. And also, the other part is the innovation capabilities of these food manufacturers. For instance, in 2021, in the midst of the COVID pandemic, we launched the world's first multi-category plant-based food innovation challenge in China. And this year, we rolled out and expand the campaign in Southeast Asia. And in this challenge, we involved food conglomerates like Unilever, Nestle, and also plant-based focused companies such as Beyond Meat, Oatley, regional food manufacturers leaders like CPF, headquartered in Thailand, Lee Kum Kee, headquartered in Hong Kong, as well as startups. So in this innovation challenge, these food manufacturers provide pinpoints and also business cases. We involve students to participate. They will select the topic that they are interested in, submit product design, ideation, concepts, as well as launch plans. So in these innovation challenges in China and Southeast Asia, the two campaigns combined involved over 700 students and created over 200 innovation proposals. The ideas come from over 75 schools and 14 different countries. It also involved over 90,000 students to log online, to read through the plant-based innovation ideas, and to vote for their favorite ideas. In the recent campaign in Southeast Asia, for example, out of the 16 finalists, 8 ideas has been selected and got the sponsoring company's commitment to carry forward and go through their innovation pipeline for commercialization. The ideas include, for example, a Wagyu-style plant-based beef slice, and also protein-enriched tempeh noodles, and plant-based ice creams, plant-based pork, plant-based chicken application in iconic Southeast Asian dishes, rich in local flavors and also spices. And also plant-based convenience sauces that can go with rice. So it covers plant-based innovations in different categories, meat, beverage, snack food, and also convenience food. The impact, according to our survey with the participant students, it not only grow their awareness about the impact of our choices of food on our health, on environment, on food securities. It also changes their interest and also behaviors in transition to a plant-richer diets. And from the marketplace, according to the survey, the feedback from the companies, the insights and also concepts created by the participating students, it helped accelerate plant-based innovations in the local markets. And bigger impact will also be seen when these companies take the ideas across the markets or even across the regions. So like Raphael said, Asia accounts for 60% of the consumers. And Asians are very proud of their local diversified food cultures. The way the food is prepared and how the texture, the flavors should taste like. So there are a lot of innovation needs and also opportunities. Now, we strongly urge and encourage food manufacturers to make your business future-proof, to accelerate plant-based innovations and create more healthier, nutritious, and also affordable solutions that are good for people and also good for your businesses.
Thank you so much, Shirley. Thank you. It's very, very impressive. And feel free to send us those tempeh noodles to Europe once it's come to the market. It sounds amazing. We'd like to start a discussion with the private sector for like 5-minute sessions input and see how their products and innovation can play a positive role in achieving more resilient, sustainable, and climate-friendly food systems. Our first speaker is Cecilia McAlevey, Director of Sustainable Eating and Public Affairs at Oatley, the world's largest oat drink company. Cecilia, thank you so much for taking the time of being with us this morning in this session. And can you tell us a bit more about your work on sustainability and why a transition to plant-based is so important for you?
Thank you. So first of all, thank you for inviting me to this dialogue on diet change or climate change. Feels very inspired listening to the stories told already by Tiffany and Shirley here. Thank you for sharing. So since the theme is innovation, I would like to share actually the story of how Oatley once started, because I think that is quite an inspiring story, which says like where there is a problem, there is always a solution. So our founder, he was a PhD student at Lund University in Sweden. And he was part of a research group studying the factors behind lactose intolerance. And when he realized that large populations throughout the world are actually suffering from lactose intolerance, he saw a business opportunity. He thought, what if one can turn crops into something replacing milk? He came across soy drink and realized that many people also suffer from allergy to soy. So therefore that we wanted to have an alternate crop. And he fell in love with oats. Oat is a sustainably produced crop. It loves the terrible Swedish weather. And it also has a mild taste. He tested different crops, but it has a very mild taste. And in addition, it contains fiber, and in particular, one fiber, which is called beta-glucan. And that is a soluble fiber, which is has proven to be able to balance cholesterol levels in blood. So he managed to develop a technique, and you can imagine what it was like. He was going back and in his laboratory, testing, and he was delighted to be able to find a technology turning those oats into an oat base, which could be used for all kinds of products. And that is actually how we started. And we've committed so many mistakes throughout our journey. But today we do exist in both US, several countries in Europe and in Asia. So I think that is quite a good story. And what is interesting in the conversation today, I think, is that we started out as a company with an alternative for people suffering from intolerance and allergy. What warms my heart is to see that there is today a transition going on driven by consumers in society, where people turn to plant-based foods, not only for medical or health reasons, but actually for sustainability reasons in terms of environmental sustainability. People are prepared to shift their behaviors and increase plant-based foods and replace traditional animal-based foods with plant-based foods in order to save the planet, not least the young generations. And I think that is fantastic. So what we do as a company, I would say, is threefold, because we know that the We are in an urgent situation. We need a transition to happen now. We have created a broken food system from many different dimensions. And I would say that what we do as a company is threefold contribution. Contribution is more threefold. So first of all, we offer people to replace traditional animal-based dairy with oat-based dairy products, which are used in the same way as traditional products. In this way, we can help people to reduce their climate footprint. We also use our voice to challenge norms and push for a shift to plant-based diets to tackle climate change and public health challenges, which you have addressed here today, Rafael, as well. And then, of course, we engage in conversations like these and others to influence the political system, because we believe the transformation of the food system is both important and urgent. And so in addition to my role at Oatley, I'm also the president of Plant Food Sweden, and we're also members of European Alliance for Plant-Based Foods, like Sylvia mentioned here. And I would like to, because one thing, we do lots of things which is beyond producing oat-based products. We engage in different ways. And one thing which I would like to promote, which I think can help consumers make informed choices in addition to knowledge, is climate footprint declaration, where we're strong advocates for and would like to urge the food industry to publish the climate footprint of their products on pack in order to empower consumers to make more informed decisions, but also to bring awareness of the climate footprint of your own consumption, because you can, at an individual level, make a huge difference. Every action counts. And by choosing and being aware of what you eat, because that's something you do on a daily basis, you can actually make a huge difference. And I think that is inspiring. It's good. You have to know that you can have an impact, and diets is essential and concerns everybody, every person alive. So I could talk for ages on this, but I think we have many interesting speakers lined up here. So thank you very much for giving the floor.
Thank you, Cecilia, and thank you for bringing so many different ideas and input in 5 minutes. I know it's challenging, so thank you for being here. We are pleased now to have Dr. Janet Fielding as our next guest. Janet, you are Chief Corporate Affairs and Communication Officer at Cronfield, which is the largest plant-based consumer products company in the world. Janet, can you tell us a bit more about your vision for a more sustainable and healthy food system?
Thank you so much, and thank you very much for the kind invitation to speak to you all today. I guess we're all meeting online and not in person because for us it's really a moment of crisis. Extreme weather has caused climate change. We have a pandemic aggravated by conditions like diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, all driven by dietary problems, and world hunger, drought, deforestation, soil erosion, and endangered species. We need to talk about, and more importantly, act upon these problems together. We can't protect our planet against climate change without dietary change, eating less meat and dairy, and we can't have healthier people without nutritious plant-based diets. At Cronfield, we are the world's largest plant-based food company, and we're working along with you to turn this trend into a transformation of our food system. We want to make plant-based eating a norm, not necessarily a nicety. These days, we often hear about following the science to contain and cure the pandemic. We also need to follow the science to stop the slower moving crisis caused by over-reliance on meat and dairy. Because the science and the data and our day-to-day experience tells us that we should be eating more responsibly. Really, we need to be eating more plants. It's about environmental sustainability, less greenhouse gas emissions, better water use, better land use, more biodiversity, and better soil quality. It's all about also about growing a market. Generation Plant, as we call it, is growing. And we want to eat plant-based foods because they taste better. It's better for health, and it's also better for our planet. That's one reason why in food and in other industries, brands that embrace sustainability grow 4 times faster. Today's consumers are interested in brands that support their individual health goals. None of us can drive the transition from meat and dairy to plant-based diets alone. We need everybody to pitch in, businesses like ours, international organizations, governments, scientists, and civil society, farmers and foodies, chefs, nutritionists, and retailers. At Upfield, we're making plant-based food accessible, available, and affordable to as many people as possible. We are the largest plant-based food company. We're #1 in plant-based butters, margarines, spreads, and cheeses globally, with iconic brands like Country Crock, Rama, Flora, and Violife. Some of our plant-based brands have been around for 100 years, like Stork in the United Kingdom. Our brands have pioneered innovations. For instance, Proactive contains phytosterols to lower cholesterol, and 100% vegan Violife cheese increases our tasty vegan options. We are the leader in dairy alternative innovations. Flora plant butter in paper packaging using less water and 50% less emissions. Plant butters and cheeses that taste just like dairy. Flora plant-based creams, which is the first non-allergen plant-based cream that whips just up like dairy cream. Hunger and malnutrition, though, cannot be tackled without the help of businesses such as ours. Our iconic Blue Band brand is working with communities across Asia and Africa with the 2030 goal of helping 100 million children start their day with a nutritious, balanced breakfast. Child nutrition matters, so does sustainability. Since October 2019, all the palm oil we purchase is 100% sustainable, no deforestation, no development on peat, and no exploitation. All our ingredients are responsibly sourced. And we're helping consumers make smart, sustainable decisions also. We're one of the first food companies, like Oatley, in 2019 to introduce on-pack carbon labeling. Research shows that when consumers can make direct comparisons between different food groups, they choose foods with lower environmental impact. Food labels already provide important information about ingredients, nutrition information, allergens, storage, and use. By adding carbon labels, we're helping consumers to choose to protect our planet as well as their own health. Later today, we'll be announcing a new portfolio carbon footprinting methodology that enables policymakers, investors, and industry to compare companies and sectors to develop a new standard going forward. But businesses can't do the job alone. We need government to give us at least a level playing field with meat and dairy. Just as governments have subsidised meat and dairy for decades, we need innovation and R&D funding for the plant-based sector. We need fair taxation rates no higher than for dairy, beef, pork, and poultry. And we need equity in communications to consumers to make it easy for them to choose plant-based. This isn't just about fair competition, important as that is to all of us. It's all about saving the planet, averting pandemics, and driving innovation, and helping our farm, food, and retail industries and the workers who depend on them to survive and thrive in the changing times. It's also about consumers protecting their health and their children's future and enjoying a sense of pride and purpose in their purchases. The need is great and the time is right. Therefore, I invite all of you to join us in Generation Plant. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janet, and thank you for being with us at such an early time. I know it's very early in the UK, and thank you really for this input. We have now our next speaker that works with a company that works on a little bit of a different yet very interesting field, cellular agriculture. As Absi Pancho works with the startup Mzansi Meat in South Africa. Absi, can you tell us a little bit more about cultivated meat and why it could play an important role on the African continent in the future?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Yes, so my name is Absi Pancho, and I'm from Mzansi Meat Company, and we are the first cultivated meat company in South Africa and Africa at large. The question we ask ourselves is, how can we make a real difference in our food systems? And that was the question that inspires Mzansi Meat Company, which is bringing cultivated meat to the African continent by means where we can positively impact food systems and contribute towards long-term food security. And our purpose is just clearly to create healthy, flavor-forward, accessible meat in Africa with a vision to make a positive impact on food systems through innovation. We took a long look at the data, and it's clear to see that conventional meat as an industry and as a protein has run its course. It's peaked in terms of efficiency and output, and we simply can't sustain it. Cultivated meat has the potential to lighten the load by using science, and we can achieve that same great taste that we all love. And we also took a long, hard look at Africa's growing population. And the reality is that we won't be able to feed the population with the current food systems for much longer. Traditionally, African homesteads, they cook food that is quintessentially vegetarian, low in sugar, and meat is used more as a celebratory ingredient. You know, the weekend, Sunday lunch, and the likes. The cuisine of modern Africa, though, has been quite largely influenced by industrialism. Hence, we see a lot of maize meal, breads, and meat-heavy recipes. Taking this into consideration, our innovation is addressing the direct need in Africa's nutritional needs, with beef being the most urgent for us to find an alternative to for climate change. And we being aware that the general population, they won't give up meat anytime soon, our solution is cultivated meat. Our process starts with a visit to our local farms, and myself coming from a family of sustainable beef farmers. We go to the local farms where animals are living their best lives in peace. Our registered vet removes tiny tissue cells from the animal with as little harm as possible. Once the cells are harvested, a sample is placed in a nutrient-rich transport medium and taken to our lab, where we isolate the cells and grow them in a culture medium. This is a special type of food containing vitamins, salts, proteins that the cells need to develop and divide. Once we have enough cells, we place them on an edible structure. And after adding a few additional spices and flavors, our meat is ready to be dished up and enjoyed. What makes us unique is that we target the meat eater just as much as we target the vegan and the vegetarian. And chefs, we've come to a realization that chefs are key in the introduction of new foods, superfoods, techniques. And this is our first distribution focus to the consumer. And I myself, being an owner of a restaurant, will definitely be pioneering cultivated meat in South Africa and obviously into Africa at large. With the recent milestones that the cultivated meat industry is achieving, chefs and retailers are very aware of the changes that need to be made in the food industry to save the planet. Right at our doorstep in Africa is Israel, which has launched the first industrial cultivated meat production facility, and Singapore is serving cultivated meat directly to consumers. We believe that the next big thing is Africa feeding Africans safely and addressing the pertinent nutritional security issue. Accessible protein for Africa by Africa. Tyson's CEO asked a very important question a few years ago, and which has definitely struck a chord in us and globally. If we can grow meat without the animals, why wouldn't we? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Absi. Thank you. And it's a very, indeed, interesting topic. I think a lot of us were surprised to see also how it took off in the past years. And I think it's a topic that is very important to discuss about. It's pretty soon time for us to close this session. I would like our last guest to introduce our last guest this morning. Noga Cronfield, thank you for being with us today. You work as the chief scientist for the Ministry of Environmental Protection in Israel. And we had the chance to chat a little bit around the solution cluster on alternative proteins in the past months. Can you maybe tell us why you see plant-based innovation in general and alternative proteins as such an important topic for the future of our food systems?
Yes, I would like to start first by apologizing for joining a bit late. I'm at the FAO at the pre-summit meeting, and I had problems with the taxi which didn't arrive, and I had to order another one. Anyway, I'm at the FAO, and it's an amazing meeting. And I would like to thank Raphael and the speakers for inviting me to this fascinating meeting. Actually, it's the most interesting one I've been to in the last 2 days. I listening to you, I really liked the youth innovation competition that Shirley talked about. I think this is a great initiative that should be duplicated in other places. I really enjoyed hearing about it, and I was also inspired to hear Cecilia and Janet as representatives of the food industry and how they can take responsibility and play a pivotal role in fixing our diets. Absi told us about the first cultivated meat in South Africa, which is important for people that will not give up meat, which is at least currently most of the population. And personally, I'd like to say that I'm a third generation vegetarian, and my whole family and kids are vegetarian. So plant-based proteins are, for me, also personally, the basis for healthy and sustainable diet. They form a major pathway for feeding humans without starving the planet. In my view, animal protein consumption should be reduced dramatically and replaced mainly by plant source proteins and also by cultured animal products, which are currently developed for people that can't give animal proteins. People should learn to enjoy diets that are healthy for us and for the planet, and therefore the production, development, and consumption of innovative foods such as alternative proteins, including plant-based proteins, fermentation-based proteins, and cultivated milk, meat, and eggs should be promoted and studied also for their health and the sustainable impacts, and appropriately used for closing the gap between the limited production capacities within the planetary boundaries and the demand, while reducing animal suffering, which is also an important point, and the ecological footprint of food systems. Although I grew up without innovative foods, all our protein sources were actually plants and not plant-based proteins. I find this innovation and progress extremely important. And I follow the innovative and growing field of alternative proteins in Israel, as well as the rest of the world. And I think it is highly important in providing a healthy, tasty, and sustainable substitute for people who are used to eat animal products. I'll just say that in Israel, the ecosystem of plant-based and animal-based alternative proteins is huge and developing very, very quickly and supported by the government. And if any of you would like me to connect you with any of these companies or startups, I will be very, very happy to do so. I'm involved in their actions. And again, I congratulate you for this important session and hope that plant-based proteins will soon become an important, if not a major part of our diet for the benefit of humans and the planet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Noga. Thank you for these very inspiring words, and we couldn't agree more with you. And thank you for taking the time to be with us this morning. I know how busy it must be in the FAO building at the moment. We now have arrived at the end of this affiliated session, and I would like first to thank all the speakers and participants also for sticking to the time limit. I know how challenging it was this morning with a limited time, but it was really great, I think, to explore all these different pathways around food innovation in only 50 minutes. I would like to give a special thank to the Buddhist Sushi Foundation and the EAPF for working with us on this event. It was really great working together on that. Before closing, I'd have just a few concluding thoughts. The OECD and FAO recently published an agricultural outlook for 2021-2030, and their prediction is that the consumption of meat proteins globally will increase by 14% by 2030 compared to the base period 2018-2020. So yes, the plant-based sector is booming, and we talked about also cellular agriculture, and it provides very interesting pathways to mitigate the impact of our food system on climate change. But we also have to think, I think we also have to consider these numbers and take them seriously, even if we sometimes like believe that there will be changes, that there will be like game-changing solutions, but we have to also to be realistic and I think take these numbers seriously. The pre-summit, which is taking place at the moment in Rome in the FAO building, with of course online a lot of online meetings because of COVID-19, provides I think a very interesting opportunity. We often refer to Rome as the eternal city, as ancient Romans believed that whatever happens to the rest of the world, Rome would last forever. Today, with the development of modern science, technology, and the sharing of knowledge, we know that unfortunately Rome and the rest of the world won't necessarily last forever, and that we will face an acceleration in climate disasters, environmental destruction, pandemics, and conflicts if we don't take the topic seriously and if we don't take action immediately. And as Noga mentioned at the end, I think this starts with coherent and bold, ambitious policies by national governments, encouraging and subsidizing a transformation in our food systems. It cannot only work from the side of the private sector alone. We also need support, like I think from national governments, from like ministries and relevant agencies. And this is why I think that in the coming 6 months, we have to succeed in New York City at the Food System Summit, but also in other forums as the Convention on Biological Diversity in Kunming, or like the COP26 in Glasgow, not to mention even like Nairobi and the UNEA 5.2 next year. So we don't have a lot of time, but we can still win this fight. And I think that the plant-based sector and plant-based innovation, a shift to plant-rich diets, would provide very interesting pathways to achieve a more resilient food system. Thank you for being with us today. Please get in touch with us, with ProVeg International, with the Buddhist Sushi Foundation, with the APF, and we look forward to working together on this. Thank you very much.